Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. With the Escalation of Freedom now being out for almost 3 weeks, I've had a lot of time to experiment with a lot of different builds on Super Helldive. Some worked, some were stellar, and others were downright atrocious. So after guinea pigging Helldiver after Helldiver, here are some of my favorite loadouts. By the way, these aren't necessarily meta loadouts or the best loadouts. These are just ones that I've seen work and also had a lot of fun with. I unfortunately do not have spreadsheets, calculating damage or all the stats at hand. But what I do have is field experience. Let's start with the bugs. Commando, EAT, jump pack, and the orbital precision strike. The orbital here can be exchanged with anything else, but I'll get to that shortly. The focus of this build are these three right here. The commando and the EATs mean you will be constantly switching out your support weapon slot for consumable rocket launchers. Your primary focus with this build will be providing your team with anti-tank options as well as helping clearing out nests and structures. You're going to be able to take out Shrieker nests, Force Spewers, Baltines, Chargers, and Impalers with relative ease, and since the Commando and EAT are low cooldown support weapons, you can even weaponize the Hell Pod really frequently and get some nice beacon sticks on enemies like Chargers. These weapons also don't require you to be fairly accurate or even stationary, so mobility helps out a lot. The jump pack lets you take your consumable rocket with you and find a nice vantage point to get better angles on high priority targets. I found a lot of success with this build, as well as a lot of fun with it too. A downside to taking long cooldown support weapons and backpacks is that if you die at a very not so nice place, you will need to walk back to your body and pick it up, and if you're unable to do so, you might be out of your toolkit for a while. If you were to die with a commando or EAT, you can just leave it on the ground and wait for the next 30 seconds to a minute to call a whole new set, which is why I really like this build. Even though the jump pack itself is a very long cooldown, the double rockets are what's really core to this build. You won't need the jump pack to reliably stick stratagems or to kill heavies. The jump pack is there just to help keep you mobile and on your feet. And as for your fourth stratagem, I've been between using it for another single target heavy killer option or something for clearing mobs. You can't go wrong with either. If you were to switch out the precision strike for something like an airstrike or a strafing run, it all works out well. In terms of your weapon loadout, stun grenade is a pretty good option to help with nailing down chargers. If you do take stun grenades, a grenade pistol or an exploding crossbow will help clear bug holes, and that helps with nest clears. I recommend you only take one and not both, since both aren't very good at dealing with bugs that get really close to you. So bring at least one weapon for getting enemies that are right on top of you. The jump pack does help with creating distance, but should it be on cooldown, you'll be glad you brought something like a blitzer or a breaker with you. For armor, since mobility is very important, I like running light armor, so it's either going to be the BOA light gunner for the armor padding, or the PH9 Predator for the easier weapon handling that peak physique gives if I want to just snap my aim with an EAT or a commando. So the good boy is comprised of the guard dog, machine gun, eagle strafing run, and orbital precision strike. Now the guard dog I'm talking about here is the Liberator version. This got buffed this patch, not only getting 2 more extra reserve mags stuffed into the backpack, but ammo packs on the field now replenish it. Personally, I've always loved the Liberator Guard Dog more than our Rover version, and that's because this version of the stratagem doesn't microwave me throughout the match. Besides, the Rover is going to get fixed soon where it won't shoot forever and will eventually overheat, and no, this is not a nerf, this is a fix. As for the build, now with the Liberator Guard Dog changes, you'll be seeing constant uptime and value coming from your backpack slot. It'll help a lot when you perform stationary reloads on your machine gun, and the machine gun is mainly meant for mob clear, and I picked this over the Stalwart because of the medium armor penetration, and I take this over the heavy machine gun because of the ammo issue. Eagle Strafing Run is a great multi-purpose tool. With up to 5 call-ins, you can use it to clear mobs, assist with heavies, and even take out Shrieker nests, Force Spears, and even the bug holes. Precision Strike is always a good bread and butter, and it's going to be your only real anti-tank option in this build, but with its damage and low CD, it's still a reliable and solid choice. As for your loadout, since the machine gun will pretty much be your primary weapon, I like to take situational primaries and secondaries such as an exploding crossbow and a grenade pistol. Stun grenades do work, but incendiary impacts are also great for just adding onto that wave clear and plugging up bug breaches. A big tip I have for this is ammo conservation. Be sure that you can take fights without having to take a risky reload with your machine gun, and to always pick up ammo packs whenever you can. The guard dog has always performed, but with these ammo changes, you'll be seeing so much value out of it, even on Super Helldive. The only downside I would have to say for this build are chargers, especially if there's a lot of them. If you do decide to take stun grenades, you could stun one and then orbital precision them, and you're pretty much good. But if you're dealing with a whole lot of them, I'd say your best bet is just to bob and weave your way out of there, and hopefully your team has enough anti-tank to deal with it. Elsewise, just wait for your precision strike to come off cooldown and go for it again. As for your armor options, I like to take either light or medium armor with the physique perk for better weapon handling, because I'm mainly going to be using the machine gun for this build. So this build consists of an orbital gas strike, a 110 rocket pod, a grenade launcher, and a supply pack. If you were to respond to a bug breach or a patrol with gas, it will absolutely melt through a lot of them, and the constant AoE explosions of your grenade launcher will help clean things up. I like to take this build on missions where bug breaches are easily expected, such as the Conduct Geological Survey mission and the Noob Nursery mission. I do feel that the supply pack is necessary since the grenade launcher does have an ammo issue. You're only carrying 2 reserve mags, and the grenade launcher isn't the best when it comes to dealing with enemy structures, but the 110 rocket pods can help with that, especially since you have multiple charges of it. When it comes to heavies, you can soften up a Bolotan with a 110 to strip off their armor and then let loose with the grenade launcher. For chargers, the grenade launcher is great at triggering their backside bleed. Just use a stun grenade and the rest is fine. I didn't mention it in the guard dog build before, but similar to this one, it would be unfortunate to die with these stratagems since they are both fairly long cooldowns. So I like to stay close to my teammates instead of running off on my own, so should I die, they can reinforce me close by them and I can just scoop up my gear. As for my primaries, anything that helps deal with mobs of bugs with an emphasis on close quarter effectiveness works well here. You wouldn't want to be caught with a bunch of hunters on top of you and you just have a launcher. On higher difficulties with multiple bug breaches coming through, you can plug one with a gas strike and focus down the rest of the grenade launcher, tossing your 110 when you see a Bolotan and stunning a charger. For this build, I like to take anything with engineering kit for extra stuns or something with a medkit passive just for those extra stims if you're a bit more accident prone and you have a tendency to run into the gas strike or accidentally fire a grenade launcher at short range. But yeah, these are 3 bug builds I've been liking to bring with me. And moving on to the bot side, here are some automaton builds I've been enjoying as of late. So as the name implies, we're taking the railgun and we're adding on the shield generator, 110 again, and the orbital precision. Now the railgun is far from its glory days, especially on the bug front, but against the bots, it's been getting a bit better and better. To recap, the railgun is able to one-shot a Hulk on the visor, and it's really reliable for clearing devastators. In my opinion, the biggest issue that made it hard for the railgun to do so well before were just the gunships, but since the update where its engine durability was lowered, it now only takes 2 unsafe charge shots to the same engine to take out a gunship. The shield generator helps make sure that you don't get ragdolled 24/7, but also lets you keep your charge and your aim so aim punch doesn't send your shot flying off in another direction. The rocket pods and the orbital precision makes this build a lot more catered towards high value enemies and enemy structures. The railgun doesn't do so well against tanks, cannon turrets, or striders, factory striders, so these 2 offensive stratagems will help you with that. If you want to, you can use your railgun as your quote-unquote primary weapon, but if you do, that means you'll likely be using it for even some basic bot troopers, and if you happen to take that route, you may want to swap out the shield generator for maybe a supply pack just for that extra ammo and stun grenades to help deal with patrols and hulks. If you feel that your team is already very good with addressing tanks and structures, I like to take eagle smokes to help with approaching objectives, retreating, or protecting hell bombs and helldivers using a terminal. With 3 charges of the eagle smokes and every bot game being a literal bullet storm, it's always good to bring a smoke. Don't sleep on the smoke, guys. I always use the railgun on unsafe mode to maximize the damage I can do with it. For hulks, again, be sure to one-shot the visor and commit a stun if you're having a hard time. You also don't need to hit the weak spot of those new rocket striders, as you can just one-pop them with an unsafe railgun shot straight to the center. With the charge time in between your shots, be sure to abuse cover as much as you can and get into the habit of jiggle peeking your enemies. Only show yourself when you're ready to fire and not while you're charging your shot or reloading. And your best bet will be to fight enemies at mid-range. There's no real reason to get up close, and since the railgun scope isn't helpful at long range, you'll have a hard time landing your shots from afar. If you do happen to make your railgun the primary, I like to take something like the Eruptor or Exploding Crossbow, as they're nice options to deal with fabricators. And if not, I like to take the Diligence Counter Sniper, as it's a great choice for fighting devastators and one-tapping troopers. Stun grenades are a given for this build, and armor with engineering kit passive is great for just those additional stuns. So we're going to bring out the big boys for this one. So we're going to take the HMG emplacement, the 120 orbital barrage, orbital laser, and anti-material rifle. As someone who personally prefers a very in-your-face and run-around type of playstyle, this is the build I wasn't so sure about it, but it has been providing a lot of value every time I bring it, and it's been pretty fun to use too, so that's why I'm putting it on this list. And this build is especially great on missions where you're taking out those command bunkers since you have the firepower to do so. If you want to attack a heavy base or a fortress, you will have all the base clearing options for it as well. These stratagems have decently long cooldowns, so be mindful of when you decide to call them in. You don't need to commit all 3 to a single engagement, especially the laser, since you have 3 charges for the entire mission. In most cases, an HMG emplacement will be enough, but I do like to use both the HMG and the 120 when responding to bot drops, and just using the laser for bases and structures. If you're wondering, I like to use the 120 as opposed to the 380 since its cooldown was recently lowered to 3 minutes, so that way I could commit both a 120 and a heavy machine gun at the same time, and since they both share the same cooldown, they'll both be up for the next engagement, so I'm always going to have them together. For all that other downtime, that's where the anti-materia rifle comes in. The AMR on the bot front can basically do it all. You can take out hulks, you can take out cannon turrets, you can take out tanks, scout striders, and even if you're desperate, a factory strider, you can unload at their undercarriage and you can even hit them at the eye. And since you're going to be pretty much a long range demon with this build, I like to take heavy armor since I'm not planning on being so mobile or up close, and I like to take ones with the servo assisted passive so I can still have my stratagems land where I need to even though I'm far away. This is especially helpful for the 120 barrage. I like to stick close to my teammates and just focus on taking out high value enemies and clearing objectives. Since I have a sniper as my support weapon, I also like to take the eruptor. It's good for sniping out fabricators, and the senator is a decent secondary to take just for any commissar or bot trooper that happens to walk very close by to you. Stun grenades can help you with your HMG emplacements and dealing with hulks, but I've also had a good time bringing smokes to help block line of sight from certain directions while focusing on other enemies. It's not an automaton build without an autocannon, and we're gonna supplement Ole Reliable here with an Eagle Airstrike, a Walking Barrage, and a Precision Strike. So like I said before, you can never go wrong with the autocannon. Hulks, Striders, Gunship, Devastators, Fabricators, it's all doable. The Eagle Airstrike is another consistent stratagem. It's able to take out mobs of enemies, help clear Fabricators, and can do a huge chunk of damage to a Factory Strider easily. The Precision Strike has always been another no-brainer choice for me. You're able to take out detector towers, jammers, command bunkers, tanks, factory striders, and since those fortresses now have detector towers built in, it's good to have a very reliable option for taking those things out. The walking barrage in this build has to be the one stratagem here. You can possibly swap with something else. I've been experimenting switching it out for the 120 barrage, but since I'm going to be running this build with peak physique and not servo assisted, I like to take walking barrage more because even though it won't necessarily land on where I want it to hit, it's eventually going to travel to that location and just crater everything on its way. So that's why I like it as a better option for this build. I like to take stun grenades to help clear with hulks and bot patrols faster, and as for my primary, the Diligence Counter Sniper has always been a solid pick for one-tapping Devastators and bots. If there was a problem for this build, it would just be for you to die at a place where you can get your autocannon back. The autocannon is such a crucial part of this build, so I advise you to stick close to your teammates so that they can reinforce you next to where you died. But even in Super Helldive, I was able to finish missions with 0 deaths just running this build with relative ease. So yeah, that's 3 builds for both the bots and the Terminids. I try my best to create builds that are very inclusive of different stratagems and have different playstyles. And I do think there exist builds that work for both factions no matter what. Here's one that I think is really good. So you're mainly going to be running the Spear, taking both the Autocannon Sentry and the Rocket Sentry. If you're fighting bots, I like to take the Mortar Sentry, and if you're fighting bugs, I like to take the Galleon Sentry. And the Spear is a great option for heavies and structures on both fronts. With your sentries around you, you can easily hold down areas and take out any Hulk, Factory Strider, Wild Titan, or Charger that comes your way. On bugs, you'll be taking the Galleon Sentry since it can easily mow down those small mobs while you take out the rest of the larger enemies. For bots, I do feel like Mortars will do a better job since the Galleon isn't enough to take out most units like the Scout Striders and the Heavy Devastators with their shield. Since you won't be running around a lot, it's nice to take heavy armor and take stun grenades to help prevent units like Chargers and Hulks from running into your sentries and just disrupting them if not running through them. The Spear is a great choice for taking out all types of structures, especially on the bot front, with only a couple shots being needed for a command bunker, and you're able to take out cannon turrets from far away that can potentially snipe your sentries. On the bug side, Chargers are a big danger to your sentries, so be sure to stun them and then focus them down with your Spear. And then Payloads also suck because they cause a lot of headaches, so try to keep an eye out for them. Like other immobile builds, be sure to stick close to your teammates so that they can whittle down those smaller mobs, but also assist your sentries from not being swarmed. Any primary that does a good job taking out groups of enemies help. As for a secondary, the grenade pistol is a nice option tool for helping clearing bug holes, but if you're scared of using a grenade pistol very close to your sentries, then you can take something like a Verdict or a Bushwhacker, which is a good choice too to blast stalkers and make space from alpha commanders with its very high knockback. I know there are some other builds that exist for both factions, but I found this one to be very consistent for me. And I do have some other builds that are still, and I would say, the experimental phase, and R&D are still cooking there, but here's a preview on some of them. But this is basically just a variation of that Sentry Spears, where instead of triple sentries, you're taking triple mines. So you're taking anti-tank, incendiary, and anti-personnel. And as fun as it looks, and as fun as it sounds, this build's weakness is not in the lack of synergy between the stratagems, but rather just the innate effectiveness of the mines themselves. The mines have too high of a cooldown, not a lot of mines are triggered meaningfully, and it can make it hard for your team to play around. I feel that one autocannon sentry alone can outvalue all three stratagem mines combined. The spear is still a great choice, and I have seen some success in taking maybe just the anti-mine and replacing the other two mines with different stratagems, but it doesn't feel the same. It's like you're gonna go to a shelter and adopt one animal from a litter out of 3 siblings, but you can't do that. It's wrong to do that. You gotta take all 3. I made a video about this one. This one's really fun too. I think this one's actually ready to come out of R&D and come into a main build, but basically it's EATs, Eagle Strafing Run, Orbital Gatling, and Orbital Gas Strike. And the focus of this build is really just culling your stratagems as often as you can. If you notice, all 4 of these are some of the lowest cooldown stratagems out there. The EAT is a support weapon you can call in the most frequent, and the Orbital Gatling and Gas Strike are the lowest CD orbitals, minus the EMS Strike, but I'm not much of a fan on that one. You are able to call in your Eagles more often, and I choose the Strafing Run because it's easier to use and play around compared to the Cluster Bomb, even though both share fire charges. So with this build, you technically have mod clear, anti-tank options, and also the ability to destroy structures with this build, so it's actually not bad. It is fun to push out as many input codes as you can, and in terms of where to use this, I had a lot of success with this against the bugs and the bots. I've been wanting to try this out on bug plans more and more now since atmospheric interference is out of the picture. I got a lot of fun with this as well as success with it too, so I encourage you guys to try it out and let me know what you think. So yeah, those are some builds that I've been trying out, and those are some quick ideas and breakdowns that I hope you guys find useful, if not, at least somewhat interesting. I know I didn't touch on certain stratagems here or certain playstyles. I know Heavy Machine Gun and Supply Pack is also a very popular build, especially on the bot front. I also really love the Tesla Tower, but you know, I'm still trying to find ways to make that work without getting kicked from public games. I'm also really not a stealth person. As an avid jump pack abuser, I'm all about running and gunning and making things go boom, so stealth isn't really something I'm interested in. I also wanted to make builds with exosuits work. If only you could throw stratagems while inside your exosuit instead of having to hop out then back in. It'd be a lot nicer to do so. I appreciate you guys for checking out the video. If you like what you see and like what you heard, be sure to like and subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments what builds you guys like to take. Serious or silly, I like hearing them all. Thanks again for checking out the video, and have a nice day.